to Hello, everybody, and we are so excited to have two amazing experts on the HBCU Majorette style to lead us in a discussion today. And it literally is an organic discussion. We thank them for their time and for allowing us to hear from them about this style. And without further ado, I'm going to let them introduce themselves and then we'll start off our discussion. So, first up, Ms. Shawn Zachary.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you for having me, first of all. And my name is Shawn Zachary. I am currently the auxiliary director at Prairie View A&M University. So I'm the head coach for the Black Foxes dance line, and then I'm the coordinator for our Twirling Thunder color guard as well. So I've been at Prairie View I'm going into my 14th season. I cannot believe that I have been here that long. But I have been coaching for in total a little over 20 years. I started out at Howard University, believe it or not. That was my first team in 1996, where I started coaching, and then I went on to coach at Norfolk State University, South Carolina State University, and I also did two high schools in Virginia and Atlanta. So wherever I moved, if my job had me moving, then I would also coach, and so that's why I've kind of had so many teams. But yeah, I am. My day job is I'm a systems analyst, but people kind of know me as the dance coach. So yeah, nice to be here with everyone.
We are so honored to have you. Thank you again. I will say that a lot. So it's almost like a game. You can just make a tick mark for every time I say it. And so now another great expert is Miss Jacqueline Banks. So introduce yourself, Jacqueline.
Hi, it's Miss Banks. I'm so grateful to be here with you all today. A little bit about me. I had the honor of being the colonel of the Willowridge Wings dance team in Fort Bend ISD. I'm so grateful for that because that's a part of my connection here with you all. As well as I went on to graduate from Howard University with my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Dance. And while I was there, I had the opportunity of joining our HBCU style dance team, Ooh La La Dance Line. That would be in the year of 2004. And again, I did it in 2005. From there, I graduated and joined STEP Africa, which is an international touring organization that specializes in arts education and expanding the tradition of stepping throughout the whole world. And I was grateful for that opportunity. And it led me to becoming a full time educator. So I started off as a consultant and then went on to just be a full time dance teacher. And I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to continue to teach dance still to this day.
Wow. This wealth of knowledge, I can't believe it. So let's start off with what are some things that we should know that are specific to the HBCU majorette style? What are some things that make it its own style, its uniqueness? And either of you answer that.
I think that what's unique about it is not just the origin, but what was it, the HBCU style kind of channeled everything that was going on in the pop culture at the time. So back in the 70s, everything was about Foxy Brown, and it was about, just looking like go-go dancers and Nancy Sinatra and all of this. And so these are the images that our teams emulated, and so a lot of the dancing back then wasn't very technical, but it was always showy. It was all very much show style, which a lot of times you will hear that term being used interchangeably with the HBCU style. You'll also hear the term show style, and that's literally what it was. And so as time progressed and we saw the the emergence of the Black middle class, you started seeing a lot more technique coming into our style because young kids were going to dance class. You know, they were going to dance class now. And so they were learning technique, and you were starting to see that within the style. And so if you look back over the years, whatever was popular at the time, that is what you saw going on. So in the 2000s, when it was, you know, the Janet Jackson video era, you saw a lot of Janet Jackson. You saw a lot of video emulating different music videos. So we picked up just about everything and combined it into that style. So you'll look at HBCU dance and you'll see you know, go-go, you'll see West African moves, you'll see modern, you'll see hip hop, you'll see jazz, you'll see a little bit of everything. So I also think that what is unique is our connection and relationship with the HBCU marching band. And you, a lot of times it's hard to separate that. You know, we are who we are because of our bands. So that's a little background. Jacqueline, what do you think?
So I'm so happy you mentioned the band. And it's literally, we are the sparkle to the band. We are in the front of the band. We are the introduction to the band. We are the razzle, we are the dazzle when it comes to the
Absolutely.
band. Every movement is connected. It's really about musicality.
Mhm.
When you think of that majorette style, the HBCU dance style, I want you to think of musicality. Every movement, we were there accenting the music. And even when we have our pelvic thrusts or bucking, it's about accenting those drum beats in the music. When the break happens in the marching band style, that's when we break it down. So when you're judging or when you're thinking about the majorette style, know that it's going to have its ebbs and flows. We're going to
Yep.
hit our technique. We're going to have our angles, but you're here to see a show. It should be entertaining. And
Yeah.
it goes right along with the music.
Mhm.
It's not it without the music.
Right.
I love that. Wow. That's it. Just so it sounds like the performance achievement caption, which is our showmanship, endurance, carriage, all of that. And then also how we see the piece as a whole. It's a 10-point caption, but we should really, as judges, we should really be expecting that performance quality to shine, the razzle, the dazzle, as you said, Jacqueline, to make sure that they are really coming forward and performing with all of
Mhm.
that energy
Mhm.
that you find the showpiece, as you said, you know, being the showpiece of the performance
Absolutely.
of the.
Absolutely. I recall during our rehearsals, we would have rehearsals strictly working on our face. Even though we
Face.
were on the field, it's understood that there are people on the field to capture our facial expressions because it is a performance, it is a show. So,
Mhm.
yes, the performance quality, the showmanship, how you're sending your energy out to the stadium audience, it all matters. And it's not
Mhm.
a boring show. It's very much entertaining.
Right, right. It is, and again, that's the word show style. And it can combine just about anything, but the connection with the audience is key. You know, when the dance teams come out, um, everybody's looking forward to the dance team coming out. They want to see their attitude. They want to see what they're wearing. They want to see what their hair looks like. They want to see what shoes they have on. Are they sparkly? Are they, you know, they want to see all these things. It's the whole package. Now, sometimes, you know, in when you're talking from an adjudication sense, you know, we have to be sensitive to the fact that not all schools have budgets for that kind of thing. So we don't put a whole lot of emphasis all the time on what they're wearing and things like that. But just understand that all of that goes into just the overall presentation. You know, anytime you see that the facials are different, you know, we perform like we're on a stage, you know, even though we're on a football field. But we perform like we're on a stage. And so our movements have to be big. I tell my girls all the time, we're performing for those 3, 4, 5,000 people up there, you know, so you can't You can't dance small. It has to be big. It has to be clean. And so those are some of the things that we work on with our dancers when we're putting their routines together.
Sounds great. Well, if y'all don't mind, may I pull up our score sheet and we can talk about choreography and even, just really emphasize anything that you think we really need to make sure that we're hitting home on, and let me
And while
share
Mary's
this.
pulling that up, the other thing too that I think will be really helpful is for you guys to share some terminology that they can become familiar with, because when we are going through and going through the adjudication process and reading, we have our different rubrics that we're going through. It's important to be able to make it more relatable, because we want everybody to understand that we have definitely dove into this and we want to know the specifics about it. So if you can share some of that, some terminology, or give us an idea of where we could find some of that, so we can also include that in the information that they will get.
Okay.
Sounds great. So let's just talk about choreography. What do you think when you think of the HBCU style? I know you said many things. We're happy to hear it again, but what are some things as adjudicators we should really be making sure that we notice, that we applaud, that we discuss?
Well, one of the things that I want to say to you guys, that um, adjudication is still adjudication, regardless of the style. Okay, so there are going to be some things that you should still expect, uh, regardless of what style you're judging. And so, energy and presence is something that's really, really important to the HBCU style. But also cleanliness is. My girls don't like it when I clean their routines because it can take a long time to go through everything. Your arms, are everybody's arms in the same place? Is everybody's head movement going in the same place? Is everybody's hand, if you're doing a diagonal with your arm, is it all the same diagonal? Like, these are some of the things we do to achieve that cleanliness factor. So that I just want to say that up front, that adjudication is adjudication, period. So
Yes,
um,
it is.
yeah, but one of the things is just knowing that, um again, like Jacqueline mentioned, she talked about bucking, and there's different components to the HBCU style. Majorette is a subcomponent of the HBCU style. Now, I know a lot of people don't like it when I say that, but that's true. Um, but it contains bucking, and again, you're looking at things like when they're down in that position, when they're in second position, are they all in the same position? Are their feet all pointing in the same direction? Um, the bucking movement starts from the pelvis a lot of times, but keep in mind that there are what I call age appropriate movement for every age group. So, sometimes what I tell people of younger teens is, the bucking movement should come from the top, because the bottom's going to move anyway. Regardless of what you do, the bottom's going to move. Okay, but it should come from the top. Watch things like facials. Is everybody showing the same facial? So this is all the same terminology. um we've even picked up a lot in the HBCU style, kick lines. And again, the what makes a good kick line is still the same. It's still a good kick line, or it can be a bad kick line if we're not careful. So all of that stuff is the same. One of the things that we are doing a lot more of is transitions on the field. And before, we used to not do that at all. We would go out there and stand in one place and just give you the best performance we could give you, and not move. But no, we can't, we don't do that anymore. So transitions are a part of the style. They are expected, and they're expected to be clean. So those types of things. I don't know, Jacqueline, what else am I missing in terms of terminology? We talked about majorette style, we talked about bucking, we talked about
So I, of course, at Howard University, ooh la la, we do the double shake. And
yeah,
that's something I wasn't familiar with until I got to college about
okay,
the double shake. And it took me a little while to actually get the movement of the double
yeah,
shake. So
uh-huh,
there, I'm sure Ms. Zachary can expound upon this further. So traditional HBCU majorette style teams have signature movements.
yep,
They have signature walks, they have signature sways. And when we come to adjudication, I think one of the things we want to ensure, if students are trying to emulate those particular teams, that they emulate them with authenticity and with clarity and movement. And so oftentimes I've seen younger teams try to emulate movements of Jackson State or, a Southern University dance team, and they're not quite getting the origination of the movement, and they're not necessarily articulating it correctly. So I
mhm,
encourage teams to continue to pull from, the originators of the movement, but just ensure that they're doing it
mhm,
correctly.
mhm,
And when we come to the bucking and the age appropriateness, for high school, middle school students, when I tell my students that I teach, because they of course want to join HBCU dance teams, I tell them that's the sprinkle. That's the sprinkle on the cupcake. That is not the icing, and it's not the cake. So
right,
if we have a full dance, maybe we'll buck for 5%. And that's just with that drum break, like pop, 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 the end.
mhm,
Because we're showing technique, we're showing turns, we're showing leaps. So that is the expectation, when Mrs. Zachary speaks to the age appropriateness. It should not take the full length of the dance, because that when you're emulating what a HBCU dance team does, that's not what their routine is.
right, right. And you will see another thing, that you will see in some of, like, we break things down by region. So we have what I call the Mississippi style. And so that's when you'll have people who are emulating Jackson State or Alcorn State. And they're from Mississippi. And so those are the styles, and Mississippi Valley as well. And those are the styles that you're going to see the bucking. You're going to see J set has become a verb. It is now J setting. Okay. And so yeah, the name of the team from Jackson State is a verb. So, yeah, that's the J setting, or, they're J setting. And so their style is just so pronounced, with how they march, how they come in. And I think that's one thing you have to kind of look at, is what is the authenticity of what they're doing. Are they doing the march? Are the hand positions appropriate? Are they, doing the kicks the way that they do? The J sets do a lot of stunts. So does the Alcorn Golden Girls. They do a lot of stunts. So, but what we as adjudicators have to understand, that they can't get out there and just roll around and think that that's going to be a good thing. They have to do the stunt well. There's a proper way to do those stunts. So, but in that Mississippi style, that's what you're going to see. As you go up the East Coast a little bit, you're going to see something that's just a little bit different. You're going to see a little bit more, it's not heavy technique, but it's sort of like a blend from the, what's in the South, and what's along the East Coast. A lot of the East Coast teams came along later. So when they kind of got started, technique was starting to be a thing, right? And so now, so they'll be blending technique, along with some of the Southern style. Southern meaning the region of the Southern region style. Texas, we have our own styles. Texas Southern blends technique with bucking. So, you're going to see technique, and then you're going to, there's this thing called the breakdown. We got to talk about the breakdown. Okay, so there's always a breakdown. The breakdown will happen in one of two places in the music. It will happen during the bridge, which people hardly even write bridges into music anymore, which I hate, or what they're going to do what's called is a drum break. Okay. And so when that drum break happens in the music where the band is playing that, that is the time for the team to be at their highest energy. And you're going to, sometimes you're going to see during that drum break, like for them to just be doing nothing during the drum break, it doesn't mesh. So during that drum break, they need, in terms of choreography, that needs to be sort of like the height of the energy of the dance during the drum break. And so you'll see a lot of movement, you'll see bucking, you'll see anything that's matching whatever the percussion section is playing at the time. So in the South, um, Texas Southern will blend their technique with their bucking. Prairie View has always been very much, before I came along, they were very much a showy Vegas style group, emulated Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders quite a bit. So there's a lot of kick lines and things of that nature. And I, so now the team is a lot more versatile. And so we do a lot more technique than they used to do. So again, but that one thing, when that drum break or when that bridge comes along, or when that drum break comes along, it's got to be high energy. It's got to match. The movement has to match the song. The movement has to match the song. If it doesn't, if it just looks like somebody threw a bunch of 8 counts together, that's just not gonna work. It's gotta, you know, and sometimes that could be as simple as changing a movement from count 1 to count 2. But it has to match the highs and low in the music. It has to match the emphasis in the music, the drum beats in the music, the verse, the chorus, the drum break. It has to match that. If it doesn't, it's just not an entertaining routine. So now you're talking about, and I'm looking at your first section there, you're talking about musicality, visual effect, phrasing, degree of difficulty. Well, let's go with those first 3: musicality, visual effect, phrasing. Again, we're talking about, does the choreography match the song? If it doesn't match the song, then they need to work on that. Um, Degree of difficulty. You're gonna have teams, depending on where you are, who again are going to be doing a little bit more technique, but difficulty doesn't always mean technique. Because if you go and look at Alcorn, if you go and look at Jackson State, their routines are extremely difficult. They're just not what you would consider, the traditional technical style, but they are very difficult. And so, just for example, I've been judging hip hop with Dance Team Union, and I've had to go and learn a whole new set of terminology, so that we can understand what that is. Originality, use of manipulatives, all of that stuff. Again, it just goes under that visual effect. And does it match? Does it make sense to the brain? Because if it doesn't make sense to the brain, you're right. Like, trust yourself when something doesn't quite match and it doesn't work.
So we have the uniqueness, we have the breakdown, making sure that that the height of that piece, when they hit that breakdown, that they are really, the choreography, everything is matching the percussive beats or whatever that breakdown may be, that is the height, and that all of that phrasing, everything else that we normally look for is there. But I like having that verbiage of breakdown specifically, and knowing what that's called, and making sure that we are being respectful and mindful of what the genre and what the style says for us to say. So I love y'all giving us those terms. And I'm definitely going to go look up J setting. I'm going to look up making sure that I understand double shake, because I'm not sure that I know what double shake is. Okay, thank you, Jacqueline. Double shake and just keep going. So any terms like that, I just am so appreciative that y'all are sharing. So thank you.
I forgot to mention, of course, hairography, because Ms. Zachary mentioned about the costuming, the uniforms, and how that all goes into play. There's sometimes with certain teams, there's a cape, there's a reveal that happens. So I don't, if teams do incorporate that into their adjudicated pieces, there's typically sometimes a reveal that is a part of the manipulatives in the choreography. Sometimes there's also specific hairography. There are movements and flicks that we do when it's time to wipe our sweat that is done in conjunction with the movement. So we're not just, it's really big on we perform from the time we leave the bus until the time we get back on. So in adjudicating what we're trying to emulate as high school teams for the college teams, the entrances and the exits matter. So it's not a traditional thing where it's just a 1, 3, 5, 7 on entrances and exits. No, it's the captain leads and they have their 8 count and it's actual, choreographed movement. And then the team follows with actual choreographed movement. It's choreographed from the entrance all the way to the exit, and that should continue to be the expectation.
Right. And if you look at any of the HBCU style or the Majorette style competitions, there's actual categories for entrance. There's categories. There's for what we call parades or marches. If you go out on YouTube right now, and if you were to search on, Howard University or Prairie View A&M Marching Storm March In, there's all these videos of nothing but the band marching into the stadium. That's it. That's all. But you'll see it is a whole production from the minute we leave the band room to the minute we return to the band room. It is all choreographed. We're being watched all the time. And so in these competitions, you will see elements of that where they're on camera all the time. Sometimes you will see in when you're adjudicating, you'll see them maybe standing over to the side and they're just standing there and they're just smiling and standing there. And I know you're probably thinking like, well, why are they doing that? Because, it's not time for them to dance yet. No, they're on. They are on. They're on camera. They're they're on the whole time. Now, that it depends on how you feel about that, but whether you think that's okay or not. But for us, when we look at them, I'm looking at what they're doing on the side of the field. When the band is playing, and what are they doing? Are they standing together? Are they looking alike? Are they smiling? Because they should be. They should be smiling, even though they're not doing anything but just standing there. So it's a production from beginning to end. So there's a certain thing called a march in, there's a march out, there's a thing called tunnels. Okay, so like when the marching band marches into the stadium, the percussion section is going to get on one side and the other side, and they call that a tunnel. And when the dancers come through the tunnel, it is just everything. They've got moves and routines and all of that when just to get into the stands. Just to get into the stands. So now, mind you, keep in mind that when I danced, which was a long time ago, we didn't have any of that. Okay, I mean, we marched in and that was cute. But once we got into the stands, we didn't really have all that emphasis on us. A lot of this has been driven by social media and by videographers. And so videographers have their cameras on you the entire time. And so because of that, we have developed all of this protocol for being in the stands, for being on the sideline, for waiting to go on to the field, to coming off the field, all of these things. There's another thing. Here's another term. It's called the sideline blowdown. So this is usually with a show style marching band. Usually, and I know you guys have seen this before, after they finish their dance routine, They all march to the side in a block and they play a song. Okay. And this is supposed to be their ending, like, okay, we did this on the field and now we're gonna blow this song for you, right? And they play this song. Well, the dancers typically are lined up in front of the band and they are doing movement. They're doing their choreography to the sideline, and it is just as, big and like this is the end of the show. This is the last thing you're gonna see of us. So they're performing, right? And so that is called the sideline blowdown. And usually if it wasn't adjudication, like if we were at a football game, it's really kind to get our fans up out of the seats and get them cheering and get them supporting us and that kind of stuff. So that's what the sideline blowdown is for. And so we judge that.
And then fifth quarter as well, Mrs. Zachary, fifth quarter.
Oh yeah, the fifth quarter. Oh boy.
So that what's interesting is we're not judging entrance and exit, but during their routine, they may, do their performance, and they may just may have that music be continuous and may do that sideline blowdown. I mean, I don't know. They might do that. So that's important for us to know that that if that is their unique ending, that we understand where that came from. So that's really important.
May I ask a question? So does that entrance always have to have music with it, or sometimes is it just vocals from the dancers coming out?
When you say the entrance?
Yes, the entrance. So when they're entering, like say there were, so like it's something that like we are adjudicating here. So are there times where they would enter just through vocals?
Yes, there are times where we would just enter through vocals. And even still, the protocol is still the same. The counts because you're watching your captain. So you know that this is a 2. So these are my counts. 1, 2.
Got it.
And now I go. So it doesn't necessarily always have to have a drum beat, especially in a situation where your actual band is not with you, but the protocol is still the same.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Angela. I wanted to jump in for just a second. So on that adjudication score sheet, my fiefdom, the place where I had to work the hardest, was developing the technique section. So I would love for both of you to talk to me. I actually taught at Dulles High School for most of my career. So Willow Ridge is my sister school. So I have deep appreciation and love for all things Enchanting Wings. So I'm going to call out for them. But what I wanted you to talk to us about is when we're talking about stylistically some things, we want to say technique wise. So you talked about bucking, we've talked about carriage, but what are some expectations like what on turning? Is it there's a specific, I'm going to go like old school jazz. Like when some of us are a little older, we were taught that a jazz pirouette was sometimes done in plie or in parallel, that type of thing. Are there any kind of stylistic turns, a stylistic kick, something that might not fall in a regular dance educator's normal expectations, but they are perfectly acceptable and part of the definition of the styling and stuff? So is it, I'm also thinking about hip hop. It's more grounded. It's that type of thing. There's more isolation. So talk to me, help me flesh out for my technique people, the isolations, the type of things that you want to see. But it helps create the musicality. I'm going to mute myself so I don't mess up anybody's stuff.
Okay.
I'm going to ask Jacqueline to go first on that, since she's in the midst of teaching and creating these routines.
Okay, so yes, first of all, Ms. Hayes, hi. Thank you so much for being here. Turn wise, the expectations are the expectations. It's technique is technique. So if you're bold enough to put it in your choreography, you have to be bold enough to do it with authenticity and correct. So a turn is a turn is a turn is a turn. However, as you went on to say, are there other things that we do in the HBCU majorette style that may not be seen in other genres? I say you see some of it in hip hop, some of it in West African. However, I do want to point out, oftentimes you will see a pop up, which is you see in hip hop, right? You'll see a V pop, which you also see sometimes in hip hop. You'll see a death drop and variations of how to do the death drop. The goal with entertaining is to always try to add on to it. So sometimes you'll see a combination of these things. You'll go into a back handspring. You'll see stunts like that, a back handspring landing in a split. But again, the execution of the back handspring is still what you would expect a cheerleader to do. So just because you added it to the choreography doesn't mean you get to do it with less technique. I hope that's helpful.
Interact with you a little bit. So I'm thinking about just, so let's talk about shows of flexibility. So you're talking about all the kinds. So would you prefer, is it just a matter of matching your fellow dancers, or do you want them kicking square onto the center line of the body? Or are they going to do big old tilts? What are you going to see more? What is you're more likely to see? More tilted kicks, more aligned kicks? Do we work it just so I'm thinking like the most the kind of technical straight up and down, but we take it off center. What should we see to make it truly authentic to a great HBU majorette style performance? What is more authentic? Using more tilt, making that kind of thing. So you can tell I'm choreographing in my brain too.
I think that we do more hitch kicks. We do a lot of hitch kicks. And different varieties of hitch kicks. And you'll see some of the true majorette teams and they'll just go hitch, hitch, hitch. They'll just, right? But again, like Jacqueline said, regardless of, whether they do it or how they do it, the technique has to be the same. And when we do donkey drops and what's the one, the majorette drop, what is it called, a donkey drop, or with the legs go straddle? I never knew what the name of that one is.
We call it a V pop.
Yeah, V pop. A lot of times you'll see teams, they watch a little bit too much TV and they think that they can just throw that stunt and just for the mere fact that they did it. If it's done poorly, it's done poorly. If their feet are flexed while they do it, that's not right. If if they're, if they are falling out of it, falling out of any of those stunts, that's not right. They're not there. Turns are turns unless they're trying to do something fancy with the turn. Sometimes I've seen people do pirouettes and then they go into a plie while they're turning. And that's just them trying to be fancy. Here's the thing, and my big thing that just grinds my gears is people doing à la seconde fouettes and they're not ready to do it. And so what they're doing is they're hopping.
Well, I can preach the choir on that one.
Yeah, they're not turning, they're hopping because they think that it's a great thing for them to put that in their routine and you're going to think that that's great. No, I don't, because you're not doing it right. Okay. And so, so it's some of those things you just have to kind of watch. HBCU style teams are going to take from what they see. They watch UDA and NDA and they watch University of Minnesota and Memphis, and they watch those teams and they take what they can and then they put it into their routines, but they can't always do it properly and they're not being taught it properly.
A passion for kids doing things safely too.
Yes.
And you'll notice that that's something that when I did my technique training for our adjudicators, that was something that I emphasized was safety. So I love hearing it from you too, like kindred spirits. Safety,
Yeah.
big thing when you choose.
Right, right. Yeah, I can't really think of, like we may have, like Jacqueline said, we may have different names for moves that you're already familiar with, but you can tell when something is being executed poorly. I would say, as technicians, trust your gut on that. If it's being executed poorly, it's being executed poorly, period. We're trying to help with that. That's one of the messages that I'm trying to get through to our HBCU coaches and to our show style educators is that, technique and execution is still important, regardless of what you're doing. It's still important. Yeah, we have the added piece of having to make everything look as big and bright and fancy and not look tired. We don't want to get tired because I'll call that out on thing. You look really tired at the end. So those are some of the things, but yeah, I mean, it's all the same. You just kind of have to trust your gut with it. I think the biggest thing is, uh, again, like Jacqueline said, is being familiar with the different styles so that you will know who they're emulating. And that might take just a little bit of study on your part to understand how the Foxes dance, how Ooh La La dances, how Southern University Dancing Dolls, how they dance, how the J Sets dance, how the Mississippi teams dance, all of that. So when you see it, you'll be like, oh, okay, I know that, I know that. But you still didn't point your feet, so no. So, yeah.
Well, I love that because I've been writing the names down of the Mississippi style and everything that you said. So I'm going to actually put that in a Word doc for in our resources page and include some of these different styles and hopefully and encourage everyone listening to add on, to email me and to add on to the styles and some things and some different groups and teams that we should be watching to become more familiar with their style. So we had said in execution precision that should be the same, that there should be the consistency of the style from dancer to dancer and that the body angles of the individual performers and the performance as a whole. Anything else that I should make sure that we emphasize or we should hear from you to emphasize?
I think for me, I am just a stickler for age appropriateness, and not all teams and not all coaches are on that line with me. You know, but I just feel like, again, I'm bringing up social media, but it has been such an influence on our style, and uh, having many people become influencers and to
Mm-hmm.
see the HBCU style that has moved out into the mainstream. So you're seeing it on commercials, you're seeing it on TV shows, you're seeing corporations who are picking it up and using it for marketing. And you saw the band on Severance on who on Apple Plus or whatever it was. You see it everywhere now. And so we've kind of um backed off on telling people, that's not quite appropriate. And so you may get some pushback from educators on that. You might. I hope that we're all kind of getting people to be on the same accord, but you might get some pushback. Like, if that's not appropriate, that's not appropriate. Because some people, doing bucking movement and doing it with some salacious facials, no. I put my foot down. Now, if they want to come and argue with me later, they can argue with me later. But I just, I believe that's important. Um, but because we've been pushed into the mainstream, there are people who believe that everything is okay, and everything's not okay. So, I said it
That's important.
on, I said it on a Zoom call. Oh my goodness.
Well, I'll back you up because I am
Thank
an
you.
educator currently working with K through 12. So while you have the experience of working with adults, because that's who attend college, 18-year-olds and up, it is our responsibilities as educators who teach kids who are younger than that to stay within the age appropriateness. So that's a part of the emulating the style, giving honor to the style, but continuing to develop the skills that are necessary and keeping it age appropriate. And I think that kind of speaks to um, what you're sharing about making sure they're completing the movement, making sure they're doing it authentically. I'm tripping over my words. I'm so sorry. With authenticity. However, when I was in high school, we couldn't do certain movements, and I'm not that old. I mean, it's just not appropriate. And it starts. I've heard your session before, Mrs. Zachary. You talked about how it starts with the band director. So again, the dance team is really connected to the band, and I recall my band director would be very clear on what was appropriate and what was inappropriate and what kind of performance, what kind of sparkle he wanted for his band. And we were, of course, the sparkle. So hopefully band directors will also give their feedback as well as to what that looks like, because we didn't buck or we didn't open our legs fully to the audience. We would go to an angle, we would go to a side. It
Right.
was never fully open to the audience. And I think that it continues to be appropriate for certain age groups.
Right. Yeah. I have this disdain for the butt twirl. There's another term for you guys. The, the butt twirl. And I just, it's there, it's a part of the style, but it doesn't mean that younger kids should be doing it. You know what I mean? And even on my team, they got 2 counts. That's it. 1, 2. After that, you can be a little bit more creative than that, and so, and then doing things towards the audience. That shouldn't be, like Jacqueline said, go to an angle you know, or to the side. But when you're doing certain things directly to the audience, it's just, and I know I'm older and people are gonna go, oh, she's old, don't listen to her. I don't, yep, it's just not, it's not, and especially not for adjudication, you know. Now I can see if it was
That's
for, um, just an exhibition or whatever, but not for adjudication. Don't do that. So,
Well, I like the idea of saying turning to the angle. That could be a very nice suggestion, and
mhm,
that's a great way for us to, as adjudicators, as y'all said, to be able to continue to educate and talk about the venue appropriate presence, and just here we are, and it's not just the carriage but also your audience as well. So
right.
that's really. And then performance achievement here is really, really big in this style. That's what, of everything I've learned, being the sparkle, making sure that you're the representation of the music on the field, all of that
Mhm.
energy, the
Yes,
endurance, the quality of the music, all of those words I think really fit into this style, that we can say those
absolutely.
words and know that we're speaking to the HBCU majorette style. So any other
Absolutely.
thoughts else?
May I ask one more question? Just thinking about the HBCU style. I saw several performances this year, some in Dallas and some at other competitions, and I noticed that there were different levels. Now, are there certain things that like say you have an ensemble of 20 people, are they all going to do the same movements, or will it be different depending on the different levels?
That is a thing. Yes. Um, I've even had that on my team. When I was transitioning the Foxes from being more of a technical team, there were some things that some of the dancers could not do. And so we did blended choreography, or we did, so like I would put everybody that could really, really turn, we put them in the center. We put them in the center, and those on the ends, they would do something visually complementary to what was going on in the center, but it wasn't necessarily what those people were doing. And so, as long as it looks good and each, all of the choreography that's being done, but is done well, but it does have to look, it does have to have a, a visual, it should be pleasing visually. You can't just randomly and say, oh, well, you can't do that, you can't do that, so you're going to do this, but then they're just kind of placed all over the place. No. So now when you start doing your formations and your field positioning and stuff, that's how you you get those people. What I do when I'm doing formations and stuff is I actually start staging from the middle of the song. I don't start at the beginning. So I start the middle, or that piece of choreography where the technique is really difficult, and I know I got to have my people in a certain formation. I put them in that formation, and then I do staging from, to the beginning and then to the end. So because you want to make sure that when you do something like that, that the formations are proper and that it looks right. You wanted to make it, it's kind of like a little hocus pocus. You wanted to make it look like, hey, I see what you did there. Everybody couldn't do that, but you choreographed something that everyone could do. And that's a good sign for us. That's a good way to, to get our dancers kind of up and moving and feeling like, they're not out there embarrassing themselves and doing things that they can't do. So
I concur with what Ms. Zachary said. We won't necessarily have all students doing all things. I've seen that though in other settings outside of HBCU majorette style, we do differentiate the instruction where we want to include all participants on the team. There are those routines that do that. So it's the same thing that we do with the HBCU majorette style. Same thing.
and
Well, this has been so amazing. Any final thoughts y'all would like to share? And we're going to, if you don't mind, on the resource page for this discussion, I was going to list your email addresses, if that's fine with y'all. So if they had any other questions, they could reach out to y'all specifically.
Absolutely. That works. I am Jackie Banks or Jacqueline Banks. I am a teacher here in the Houston Independent School District, and I would welcome the opportunity to continue to connect with everyone. If there are any questions, I'm happy to share my knowledge, and I look forward to seeing you all at TDEA next year.
I absolutely. And I guess, did you provide my email address already?
I will
Okay.
provide it in that document. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
I'm always here, happy to connect, answer whatever questions you guys have. Also, I have, I'm just kind of getting started because I forgot to mention in my introduction that I'm the founder of HBCU Auxiliary Dance and Auxiliary Association. It's a mouthful, but yeah, we have an organization called the National HBCU Auxiliary and Dance Directors Association, and we have a national conference every year in Atlanta, Georgia. However, I am in the process. In fact, just this year, I had a couple of weeks ago, I did a workshop in Spring ISD. Same thing. Same thing. It's just we need to know about this. We don't know what to expect. We don't know what to look for, and then the students, they want to learn from someone who knows it. So we did a workshop for them. I'm doing a workshop in Dallas, Fort Worth, July 18th, and it's a one-day workshop at Townview High School in Dallas. And but anyone from any ISD surrounding ISDs can attend that, and I'll be putting out that information. My association has an Instagram account, and that's probably the best one to follow, where you'll see all the announcements. I have a contact form, so if you want to be emailed of when we have events and things of that nature, then I suggest, fill that out, and then so every time we send out a constant contact, then you'll know about these things. I am looking forward to doing, since I live here, and the company is incorporated here. I would love to do more in this area. So if there is anyone that has a need, if need me to come and talk to just the educators, because I really think this discussion would be great, expanded a little bit, where we can go through the videos so I can show you and point things out to you and that kind of stuff, just so everybody knows, what they're looking at. But if there's any kind of workshop or discussion panel, or you need me to come in and do something for the students, I'll bring my young ladies from PV. We'll come on over. We'll do that. Um, just let me know what you need, and I'm here to make that happen for you.
What a great resource. I'll make sure I type that in. And I would love to see more about the different styles and to try to understand, because it is something that it reminds me of hip hop, where there's the East Coast style, the West Coast style, and what they do in Germany is different than what they do in Australia, or whatever. So it's important to understand and to learn. So thank you for giving us that resource. I'll definitely type that in. And educators, make sure you reach out. The information's on the resource page. We are thankful for y'all. So thankful and grateful. We look forward to learning more from both of you. We hope that both of you will sit in our adjudication seats. And if you have anything else, please reach out to these ladies. They are amazing. Thanks again for listening and watching today, and for learning more with us. Bye.